In the Sylvania Academy detention room, inside one of the prison cells there, Caden and Knox were seen in prison there. There was also a guard guarding the two of them outside the cell. When Caden recalled their fight with Ed, he could only curse. He felt like Duke Creffin's assessment was right. He had a quick mind and good combat ability even though it was not perfect. If he was still alive, he could be a significant threat to the Roth-Taylor family. Knox agreed with that. Moreover, it was not only his combat ability that stood out, there was also his partner who was a spirit sorcerer who was ready to burn all her magic resonance to summon spirits higher than high spirits, and also her partner who was a mage who without hesitation swore revenge. He was able to form a deep bond with people whose abilities were beyond reason. The potential that Ed Roth-Taylor had was completely unpredictable. He had heard a lot of information regarding how bad the Roth-Taylor family heir was, so he was still curious why the patriarch personally ordered them to kill his son, but now, he could hypothesize, that Ed Roth-Taylor, with his current level of ability, had thoughts of defying the patriarch of the Roth-Taylor family. He pretended to be mad after being appointed as the family heir and then fled to Sylvania, to establish his own influence here. Knox himself was surprised by his conjecture, but, he knew. Unfortunately, discussing all that was no longer useful. The guard who heard their conversation, then confirmed his words. The guard said that their top priority now was to leave here, and report everything to the Duke. The two of them were then surprised when they heard his words. The guard then walked over to them and asked them to be quiet. He told them not to worry. He explained, simply, there was a party that benefited from the chaos that occurred due to their escape. Hearing that, with hearts filled with confusion and shock, they then asked, "Who are you?" While smiling broadly at them, the guard then replied, "My name is Dune, I'm a scout for the Elt store." Meanwhile in Lucy's room, she was currently lying down boredly while imagining Ed's face. She then called Belle Maya who was nearby, and before Lucy could ask, Maya already knew what she wanted to ask. She replied, the remaining time was 3 hours 24 days. Lucy was silent for a moment hearing that. She then begged Maya to please just kill her. But, with a sparkling face, Maya said that she couldn't do it. She apologized to her for that. Meanwhile, outside the Awfulous Hall, many people were then fascinated when they saw a very beautiful girl who walked past them. The girl had sparkling silver hair with an aura that was different from most people. The girl walked leisurely while humming a song. Saint Clarice or Kylie who saw the girl was also fascinated. She felt that the girl was really beautiful. Her aura was very mysterious. Her hair was glittering silver, but she then remembered that her hair seemed to be glittering silver too. But as she continued to observe the girl, she was then surprised when she saw her suddenly disappear. Although the girl disappeared, but she could not disappear from Kylie's mind. She looked like a student, but her clothes were not the academy uniform. She was really confused by that. This made her think that there were still many things she didn't know. That was also what made her think. Because there were many things she had to learn, she had to study hard every day. She realized, no one would know if she would get this kind of time again in her life, so she would make the most of it. But, she suddenly fell silent. She sighed, with a sad face. She then opened the sheet in her hand. The sheet was a brochure containing information about candidates for student council president this year. She thought she could meet with Tanya after the Awfulous Hall was repaired, but her whereabouts were unknown. So she was shocked when she saw the academy newspaper saying that she was running for the student council president election, but at least, it seemed that she was safe now. It made her grateful. However, the news that shocked her the most was the death of the third-year student, Senior Ed. The main suspect was the Roth-Taylor family retainers who expelled him. The memories of when she was in the cabin during that snowy winter, and the way he made her think about the meaning of freedom, still felt very clear in her memory. But now, Tanya, who was her first friend in this academy, was accused of being the one responsible for his murder. The students in the academy seemed to be in disbelief when they heard the news of Ed's death and Tanya was the main suspect in the murder. They were shocked. How could a girl like her think of killing her own brother? Kylie, who walked past the academy students, could clearly feel the atmosphere in the academy that felt gloomy. She certainly didn't believe the accusations. She still trusted Tanya, but with the news of the retainers escaping, the public sentiment in the academy keeps worsening. For some reason, without the presence of Senior Ed, the atmosphere in the academy feels darker and gloomier, like Clarice who walked downcast with a negative aura surrounding her. The students who passed her were even surprised when they saw the gloomy aura that enveloped her. At that time, When the Sylvania Academy officials were meeting to discuss Ed's murder, Principal Abel said that the workload was indeed quite large, but all this was related to the death of Ed Roth Taylor. It would be great if there were professors who wanted to take responsibility for this task. He then asked Professor Plubane if there was a professor in the Faculty of Magic who knew Ed Roth Taylor, had connections with Clebius, and also had interactions with Lucy. Hearing that, Professor Plubane pondered for a moment. He then replied, "There's an assistant professor." The assistant professor that Professor Plubane meant was of course Claire. She looked lifeless at the moment, her face was really thin like a zombie. This was due to the many tasks she had to do. In the past when there was this much work, Ed was always there to help. She could only sigh helplessly thinking about it. Life was really unpredictable. Clebius, who heard her words, also agreed with that. Assistant Professor Claire was silent for a moment. She then looked at someone beside her. It was Anise. Claire felt that Anise had become a bit quiet lately. Anice's face looked exhausted at the moment with black bags that could be seen clearly under her eyes. The news of that person's death was really painful for her. It was a brief connection that could never work out anyway, this painful feeling rising in her chest. Anise then thought that she had to be strong, everything would be fine. Even though the image of Ed was still lingering in her head, she felt that she would be able to endure it. But, however, Yenika herself was the witness to the real culprit behind Ed's murder. It really worried her. If it was to this extent that she was difficult to stem this pain, Anise was sure that Yenika would feel pain many times stronger than her. But, contrary to her expectations, when she came to see Yenika, with a cheerful smile, Yenika said that she was thinking of trying to make curry today. This was completely different from Yanika's sad feelings that she imagined. Not realizing her thoughts, Yenika then asked her, "You are quite good at cooking, right?" She asked her opinion about it. Controlling the fire was still a bit difficult for her, so she thought of trying a dish that was cooked slowly over medium heat. She's good at preparing ingredient, but she was always a bit hesitant when making new dishes. But after thinking about it carefully, Yenika felt that maybe not so, because it's not that she mostly cooks hot dishes lately. She heard that cutting vegetable intake is bad for health, so she thought what if she tried something else like a salad. But, Yenika was then surprised and confused when Anise suddenly hugged her, while shedding tears from both eyes. With a sad feeling, Anise asked Yenika to be patient. That man was no longer there, he was dead, so she asked her to be sincere. Yenika was then surprised to hear that. She was a little hesitant to say the reason. Seeing that, a spirit then asked her if this was okay. Hearing his question, Yenika then made a gesture asking him to be quiet. Time passed. In Ed's hiding place, Ed looked pensive while holding a brochure containing information on this year's Student Council President candidates. Seeing that, Yenika said she heard that Tanya appeared on her own at the academy. All this time she had been hiding in the private dormitory of the royal family member, but now she was also willing to cooperate in the investigation to prove her innocence. Princess Phinia officially stated that she would support Tanya, so Tanya's acceptance rate in the eyes of the students also recovered. However, many more students at the academy have gathered to support Lortel. The candidate registration isn't even over yet, but the atmosphere already favors Lortel. After saying that, Yenika suddenly remembered something. With trembling hands, she then asked him, "By the way, when Lortel stopped by here, did she do anything?" Ed was then surprised to hear her question. Seeing that, Yenika immediately said that she knew she had no right to interfere in this. Putting that aside, if the situation continued like this, but, before Yenika could finish her words, someone suddenly came there and said, "Lortel will be student council president." That person was Zix, and before they could ask him anything, Zix had already explained that he came here because of his promise with Ed. But Yenika is here too. Zix felt that even if Lortel became student council president it didn't matter. But with Caden and Knox escaping from prison, the suspicion that Tanya was planning his murder was getting stronger. He even went as far as visiting the private dormitory of the royal family members at the request of Princess Phinia, but, because he was risking his life in this situation, so he couldn't be a witness for Tanya, Zix said what he wanted to say was, Tanya's current condition was far from normal. As her younger sister, someone who was close to the top-ranked students. Even without being a student council president candidate from the first year she already stood out, but now, she's being accused of murdering her relative, and is being watched suspiciously by every student in the academy. Soon, when the candidate registration is complete, she'll stand before everyone. From the looks of it, Zix felt that Tanya doesn't seem like she can endure this anymore. He then called Ed. Hearing that, Ed said yes and asked him not to continue anymore. Now it was Act 3, Scene 2. The Student Council President election arc. If you recalled, this episode did not have a single scene. This is a scenario designed to showcase the protagonists' relationships formed during their time at the academy. By the book, Taylor would actively support Princess Phinea's faction, because at the beginning of the semester, they expelled Ed Roth Taylor and saved him. Of course, election campaigns don't involve persuading each student individually. The top students of each grade greatly influence their peers. So the goal is to persuade the top students they have connections with. Among the 12 top-ranked students, Lucy is too lazy to vote, Janica wants to vote for all candidates, Wade who will definitely side with Princess Phineas, and Dorothy who will side with Tanya. In conclusion, the people who can be persuaded are the 2 top-ranked students from each grade, with a total of 8 people. They are Joseph, Claude, Clebius, Alvira, Drake, Atlanta, Dyke, and Traciana. For example, if 5 or more of these 8 people give their support to you, then you can win, by winning this election and making Princess Phineas the student council president. Taylor, who has contributed greatly, will get the support of the royal family, which will be his biggest supporter until he reaches the ending. This royal family support is especially needed when facing Crefin Roth Taylor in Act 4 and in the final battle against the main boss. Maintaining the main flow of this scenario is a matter of life and death. On a smaller scale, it is not only a weapon for personal benefit, but also the surest way to survive various major trials in the future. Even though small details have already changed, the main flow must align for the future, so, Princess Phineas must become the student council president. Ed realized, if he continues to hide like this, the public opinion towards Tanya will only worsen. Besides, in order to prevent Lortel from becoming the student council president, maybe Princess Phineas will decide to run for the election again. When coming to that conclusion, Ed felt like he should secretly inform Phineas about him being alive, and convince her to join the election. He also thought, convincing all the top-ranked students who have connections with him to shake up the election situation might be worth trying. The point is, until the candidate registration ends, there's still plenty of room to make Princess Phineas a candidate again. But what makes Ed hesitate is, if that happens, what about Tanya? She is now labeled as a murderer because of him. She has to endure torture that is not in the scenario. This really made him confused and hesitated between what he should choose, Tanya or the scenario. Seeing Ed, who was deep in thought, Zix then said, "It seems like Senior is having a lot of thoughts." He asked, "How about we just cancel today's plan?" Hearing that, Ed said that it was not necessary. "We could start now." Zix smiled at that. He then opened the cloth that wrapped the sword on his back. With a dagger on his thigh, Ed said that it was time to test the results of his training and check some things. Sometimes moving the body can help clear the mind a little. Zix thanked him. Lately he also hadn't gotten a proper sparring partner, so he just wanted to loosen up his body too. He asked him if it was okay. Ed said yes, it was okay. With a sharp look, the two of them then prepared for the light sparring they had planned.